when I get back, and she said, sometimes the buses don't turn up, but thanked her really deeply for doing that, because by using public transport, people are not bringing their cars, making it more pleasant for all of us who live here, and also it means that they hang around for longer when they're here, got more money to spend on other stuff in the town, they can really relax and enjoy themselves, and yeah, it's just good for everybody, and obviously really good for the environment. Yeah, sorry, there was something else I was going to say about that. But yeah, it's really great when people can get here by bus and just be here and not have to think about anything else. Incidentally, I have heard rumours, very strong rumours, that the railway companies are thinking of making sure there are buses from Castle Carey station and from Bridgewater station. So it could be loads easier. But that probably is not straight away. I'm going to hand over to Phil to give a little bit more detail, and I'll finish off.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name's Phil Shepherd. I've lived in Glastonbury about 22 years, but I've been running the engine room in Somerset Film during that time, which is why I haven't really ever got involved in life in the town. So for me, it's great to actually come and say something here to your august body. And I was looking at the investment fund that you've got, and I was looking at the Charter for the Environment. And as a regular bus user, I don't have a car because I only work part-time now, so I really don't need a car. So I use the buses, I ride my bike, I use the trains when I can get to them. And yeah, the 376 has been mentioned. To me, that is the lifeline to Bristol, and it comes late in the evening, which is fantastic. And long may that continue, because it does mean as long as you can get to Bristol, you can get home, although they've just taken off the late night Sunday one, which I've written to them about and not had a reply. So my proposal to this committee today is, or to the council today, is for poems on the buses. Now, I don't know how many, I'm sure everyone's been on the tube in London, and seen over the years, it's a long running thing, poetry on the underground. Have been on tube trains forever and ever, and the reason they've been forever and ever is they're really popular and successful, because basically it's poetry, and it might be a classic poem, it might be a poem written by a child, it might be a haiku, it might come from anywhere, but it gives you something to look at that's not an advert. It gives you something that to reflect on, and often I used to find when I lived in London, I'd be off elsewhere and that poem would stay with me and resonate through the day. That thing that art can do for us, which is help us to reflect on life, learn a little bit more about ourselves in the process, and maybe have more empathy with other people, something that I feel we need a lot of. So I was thinking about the kind of agendas that are prevalent today. We've got the levelling up agenda, we've got the need to address the cost of living crisis, and it just feels to me that getting more people out on buses, making the streets safer, because when you're on a bus, you walk to the stop, there's more people walking, there's more engagement, and something that maybe, and of course it's more affordable than driving a car to go to Bristol and back, as I heard a woman only say with great surprise on the bus yesterday. And there's something else that happens on buses that's not so obvious, which is around sociability and actually the big society in action, if you like, when you see a disabled or a blind person trying to get on the bus and everyone's helping them and making them feel welcome. That really happens, not all the time, but now and again it's a real heartwarming experience, and you go away feeling enriched from having used that bus. But of course there is a problem in that a lot of the time they're cold, the infrastructure's run down, I'm afraid the staff often are a bit demoralised. There are issues that really need to be addressed, but one way is to get more people to use them. Poems on the underground, poems on the buses would work, I believe, and it's a sort of one way into bringing art into the buses. I have to admit, full transparency, I have experience of this because we've run projects over in Sedgemoor with buses of Somerset called Art First, where we actually, but it all came out during COVID, so it didn't get quite the exposure it might have done, but actually it proved the point, the kind of project idea was proven, that it worked to engage people. So my proposal very quickly is that this July, we work with children and young people from the local schools and hopefully from Strobe College to not just generate poems from young people, but also have those young people engage them with engaging with wider. So it's an intergenerational project where everyone gets a chance to pitch in and write something. And then that work is, with full cooperation of the bus company, yet to be secured, is displayed in the Cove cards on the buses in the autumn. Now, we need the Town Council support to do that. And specifically, I believe you talk about task and deliver, is it? No, task and complete projects. Well, I'd like to put it forward to you that this is a task and complete project, that particularly what I'd really welcome the help with would be your contacts with things like the local Rotary, the local WI, the local Chamber of Commerce, which I'm sure many of you are probably involved in, bringing those organisations on board to see the value of this and thus meet our target of making Glastonbury a bus destination to be proud of, really. That's it.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
Before you go, I wonder whether, Connor, do you have a card that you can let Phil have?
I will do toward later. I don't have one on me right
Okay.
now.
Thank you very much. Suzanne, did you wish to?
Yeah, just a couple more things. Yeah, what I was going to say is I've noticed that a lot of people, especially young people in cities, now don't own cars. And I even heard a woman on the 376 she was going back to London saying, next time I'm going to hire a car and drive all the way here. And I thought that would be such a shame. So there are a lot of people who would come here more readily if they're, if the buses are promoted. Secondly, I think it would be great to use the actual bus stops, which are going to presumably be managed by Somerset County Council, to advertise and promote and to thank people for using the buses, to really build it so that people feel good about the fact they've used the buses. And thirdly, just to make the point that, of course, if other people use the buses, that's supporting their services for local people as well, which we all need. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. So next on the list, I have Georgia to speak about the wall at the end of Benedict Street. And I can't see her here. Emma Jane King? No? The Nolan Principles of Public Life, which I'm sure councillors have committed to memory. So as we're moving forward, I'd now like to ask the vicar, David McGeoch, if he would say a few words before we light the unity candle. Thank you, David.
Thank you. John and I met just over a week ago to talk about all sorts of things which you expect a mayor's chaplain and a mayor to do. I'm glad to say we do meet quite regularly, not as often as we might like. I just want to say something to the two of you before I say anything else. Various coaches, and I use them very regularly to go to London, they do just that, and I endorse everything you've said. It's wonderful. They have a career service, and at each stop, one of them stands up and tells a little poem, one of which is all about the Vicar of Glastonbury, but that's another story. So in our meeting, one of the things that the two of us talked about was the deprivation and loneliness around Glastonbury. Now, it's very easy and right that we should draw on the caravans that are scattered around the town, and I'm not here to embark on any conversation over that because I know you talk about that an awful lot. But I do take quite a few funerals at the moment of people who have felt very isolated, some of whom feel very suicidal, living in their own homes. And it's easy to think that it's just those that are walking on the high street who are homeless or have all sorts of other deprivation, and we home in on those. Again, absolutely right. But it's of all ages. Youngsters, teenagers in particular, who really have suffered very badly since COVID in terms of socialising amongst one another. They tend to do it on these lovely computers or not at all and feel very, very lonely. Also 70, 80, 90-year-olds equally feel very lonely. So my suggestion, of course, I live with miracles and hope, and I know what I'm suggesting might seem slightly impractical, but I would like to suggest to you all that you think about the fact that we, the general public, elected each one of you to the wards that you stand. And consequently, I'd like to suggest that perhaps you go back into those wards somehow over the next 6 weeks, knock on doors, leaflet drop, whatever you think is best, and just say, how are you? And is there anything that the council can do to support you? And just doing that, I do appreciate you're all volunteers and it takes a lot of time, but there are 4 to each ward, so maybe you can divide that up. Secondly, I'm very aware that some people, as they open the door, might give you a load of verbal. Well, go around with hearing aids and just turn them off at that point. But I do think it would be a really, really good idea, and it shows the council care and that we as a community care, and it's taking ourselves out. And maybe something to ensure that you have a little bit more time, and this is very, very practical, but I hope, is that you lift meetings for a while in order you can just go out and meet the people who elect you and that we are all called to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Now, would you be happy to light the unity candle for us?
Just before we stand, please, we've all been deeply moved, I'm sure, by all that's gone on and going on in Turkey and Syria, and we're now a year on of a war in Ukraine. So please, when we stand in line, light the candle, in that moment of silence, we hold all these people in our prayers, in our thoughts, especially those that have lost multiple family members and friends, those that have lost their lives, and equally those who are caught up in war. Would you all please stand? This light shine out in the darkness of the night to bring about peace and hope. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. So, councillors, I hope that at some point, not necessarily on this evening's agenda, that we will be able to discuss the idea that the vicar has placed in our minds. We are all very happy to go and knock on doors when it's election time, but this is a different sort of time now when the community are feeling the cost of living crisis, and some people are still rather concerned about the impacts of COVID on their lives and on the lives of their families. So perhaps it would be wise for us to talk, perhaps in groups of ward councillors, how we might be able to knock on people's doors and ask them how they are and whether or not there's anything that they feel the council could help them with. It would be quite an undertaking, but we managed to do it at election times. Thank you. First item on the agenda is to receive apologies for absence and the reasons given. Connor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've received apologies from councillors McDougall and Cottle, as well as Alderman Ian Tucker. Councillor McDougall has got a conflicting meeting at Mendip District Council. Councillor Cottle is unfortunately feeling well, and Ian Tucker has a personal engagement this evening.
Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Yes, Councillor Nufford.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I'm a member of Street Parish Council, and I'm a member also, not in this parish, but another parish of Mendip District Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I note that Councillor Henderson and myself are also members of Mendip District Council, and I am on the Town Deal Board, as is Councillor Michael White and Councillor Paul Manning. Councillors, if there is an item on the agenda where you feel you have an interest, please make a point of order and tell us. To approve and sign as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of January. Councillors, I draw your attention to page 69. 70. 71. 72. Yes.
So this is just a question. It might be more appropriate for later, but the Resilience Committee and the proposal for the solar panels and the energy efficiency measures, is there any update on that, or will we get that update later?
Connor, I shall ask Connor to answer.
That's probably a question for Councillor White as the chair. There was a Resilience Committee meeting last night that I wasn't able to attend, so I don't know whether Councillor White might have a bit more information on that for you.
Councillor White.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the things that we had had a consultant spec. Melissa gave an explanation of it. We had the thermal imaging camera pictures as well. So one of the things is inside the town deal about Avalon Community Energy. So we're now going to talk to them. We'll talk about planning, and so the discussion on that is whether it goes to Mendip or waits till unitary. So that is still to unfold, but we did look at those, and then we also got someone to talk about the energy efficiency of the main hall. And so someone can come from Bristol and they can do a site visit. So we recommended that they come and do that, and then they would do like a proper spec for it.
I was understanding that the energy efficiency was going to be for the offices.
The offices as well, yeah.
Yeah, so both town hall and offices.
I think so, yeah. So still to unfold.
It's in process. Yeah. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. I have to declare that I'm a director of Avalon Community Energy, as it's been mentioned. I think the committee did make a recommendation to move forward with exploring a planning permission for solar panels on the spec that was created. Yeah. Thank you. So page 73. Councillors, do I have your permission to sign these as a true record of the meeting? I will suffice.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Whilst I do so, we will receive an update on the actions from the last meeting from the town clerk.
May I just point out, Your Worship, there's the set of minutes from the extraordinary meeting on highways to sign after that.
Thank you very much.
So, would you like me to give an update before we sign those?
Let's go through and carry on. I didn't notice them underneath. So, councillors, I'd like to draw your attention to the meeting on the 19th of January. The minutes start on page 74. Page 75. Yes, councillor.
Sorry, reinstate the paved inserts to the roadway as they are uneven for pedestrians and vehicles, causing noise, vibration and damage. Reinstate? I thought we were going to tarmac them and get them out of the way altogether.
There's rumble strips straight outside.
Yes, which I can see it actually. Which page are we looking at?
Sorry, 74.
Oh, sorry, you're right.
Midland Street. Reinstate the paved inserts to the roadway as they are uneven for pedestrians. I'm assuming that that's talking about the.
You're quite right, councillor.
Cobbles.
Yeah, I believe at the meeting we were saying that they should be actually smoothed over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they've got to be lifted, haven't they?
Yeah.
Moved and the thing made flat.
So, Connor, would you like to just note that it's not to reinstate, but to remove?
Mm.
Thank you. Thank you, councillor. Well spotted. 75. And 76. So councillors, oh yes, councillor Henderson.
Sure. Just to say that There is a suggestion on there that I think I put forward about Paradise Estate having double yellow lines on the entrance and exit, which have been done. So whether that, as we've been banging on about that for years and years, I don't know if you want to remove that from the list because it has actually been done.
Councillor Napper?
Well, maybe the problem there is that maybe the double yellow lines are not long enough. Whether they can be extended or not, I don't know, because very often you get a vehicle parked on that junction or by the double yellow lines or the end of the double yellow lines, and the visibility is very, very grim there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, I'm not sure which one was first. Okay. Councillors, you decide and one of you speak first.
On page 76, the middle one, the High Street, improve the surface of the pavement. Well, a week ago Friday, I was just coming along here by Covenstead, and an elderly lady fell down, tripped on the pavement, just right outside on the wonky pavement. At that moment she went, I was about 100 metres away. But when I got near, another person was helping her up, asked if she needed help. She said, no, okay. And then I came into the office downstairs and just asked who is responsible for pavements, just in case, and it's Somerset.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Smythe and then Councillor Orange.
Thank you.
And then Councillor
Back to page 74, if I may, with regard to the A361, it should read, review the A361 as a national freight route as it causes damage to property and is a threat to life also.
Thank you. So that was what was agreed at the meeting? So, councillors, I'm Councillor Ronnie Dougal.
Yes, with regard to the desirable, the cycle paths, I noticed that the request for cycle lanes in Wells Road and Benedict Street has not been included. I've looked through and I can't find them anywhere, so that was another request, that to increase the number of cycle lanes within Glastonbury in general, and that includes Wells Road and Benedict Street.
So this is one that's missing completely from the list. So I'd like to just go back to Councillor Smythe. Could you, for the benefit of the clerk, who now does have a copy that he can amend, could you just repeat what you were saying, please?
Review with an outcome to remove the A361 from the national freight route as it causes dangerous levels of traffic along the route, which causes damage to property and is a threat to life.
Which page are you looking at?
Page 74.
All right, thank you.
So it's not only property. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Henderson, you raised, I will come to you, Councillor.
Yeah.
Councillor Henderson, you raised something earlier on that then Councillor Napper responded to. Have you changed your mind about that, or are you still wanting that to be amended?
Well, Your Worship, I think if they could be extended, that'd be great, because I understand what Councillor Napper is saying, that there is still traffic there, but it is a lot better than it used to be. So, yeah. I mean, I think happy for small victories.
Thank you. I think it should stay in because it's actually a record of the meeting that we had. Yeah. But I think that it possibly could use the word extended, and that way we will cover two birds with one stone.
Your Worship,
yes.
It's the same as the Manor House Road one, the last one on page 76. It's the same sort of meaning, that maybe 25 yards is not long enough.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Cook, thank you for your patience.
Thank you. I'm just concerned with this mini roundabout thing on Beer Lane and Fisher's Hill. I'm not concerned about it. I mean, it would work, but we used to have a mini roundabout up at the top of the high street, which I think a lot of us still actually use. Absolutely. You know, to turn around, to go up the high street and turn around. So maybe it's either one thing or have the roundabout put in also at the top of the high street, you know, for continuity and for, you know, if you're going to put a roundabout on the Fisher's Hill exit, it's pretty much exactly the same kind of dangers there.
Well, councillors, as we're checking the minutes for accuracy, we can add to the minutes something that didn't happen in the meeting, but I hope that the clerk will take a note of your suggestion. So apart from the amendments we've already, yes, councillor Smythe.
Just again on page 75, Tallview Avenue junction with should be Hill Head really. Because it's on the...
Rather than the Roman way.
That's all three, I think. Isn't it? Yeah. Just on the one side. Yeah.
Thank you. So, Connor, do you feel that you've captured the amendments?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship.
Connor, do we, with the amendments that you've made, councillors, are you happy for me to sign these off as a true record of the meeting with the amendments made? I will suffice. Thank you. And while I do so, we shall move on to the receive an update on the actions from the last meetings. Connor, I'm looking towards you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will also type up those amendments and resend them to the County Council, just for clarity.
Thank you.
So, actions arising from the last meeting. The comment about a breach of planning permission was passed to Mendip District Council, and I believe that is in process with them. I raised the queries regarding the categorisation of crimes with the police. I'm awaiting a response. I liaised with the responsible finance officer regarding your query on the budget, Councillor Ronnie Dougal, and I've had an explanation which I haven't yet emailed to you, but I will do. It's quite simple in the end. I have brought, the next one is regards the Tor defibrillator. That's still in progress because the council hasn't decided what it wishes to do. I will put that on a future agenda for either the council or a relevant committee to decide what it wants to do regards the Tor that used to be on the defib that used to be on the Tor. I've brought to you a draft Precept leaflet. It needs a bit of zhuzhing up, but it's an agenda item for later on in this meeting to consider at least the wording. I arranged and we held the highways meeting. I put Councillor Osborne in touch with the police inspector regarding the interviews for the PCSO supervisor. And I passed on the comments regarding the broken manhole cover in Abbey Park to Mendip District Council that Councillor Cook provided me.
Thank you very much. So we now note the beat team update. Oh, sorry, Paul.
Is it possible to ask a question about the actions?
Yes, please.
We had a presentation at the last meeting. There was an action which was that the council was going to write in support of Mendip District Council's enabling project. Did that actually, have we actually written in support, or?
I've drafted the letter, I've drafted the letter because Mendip District Council, I asked them, do you have a template or do you just want me to write one? It took them quite a while to give me an answer. They've asked that I just write a letter of support. I haven't finished it or sent it off because I was away at the end of last week and the beginning of this, but that is another action that it's in my email inbox, but quite right, it should have been on the list, but that's in process.
Well spotted, Councillor, thank you. So, councillors, we now note the beat team update and latest crime statistics report.
Your Worship, I provided everyone in their meeting papers the crime statistics report, but I have not had an update to provide to you either today or in advance of today from the police beat team. So I'll follow up with the sergeant and get one to circulate to you after the meeting.
Thank you very much. Councillors, has any member of the council been attended a meeting with the police that they would like to report back on at this point? No. Okay. Well, that's a meeting. Is that the meeting that we've just signed the minutes of?
No.
No.
So is there?
That was the one with Inspector Reid
Mm-hmm.
and his people, and there was about, what, 10 of us or something?
So will that come under another item on the agenda? Councillor?
I don't think so, Chair. I think it was a discussion to sort of formulate a group, which I think was going to be called the Glastonbury Community Group or something like that. So I think the official first meeting hasn't actually taken place. So I would have thought that will come at a later date.
Is there anything to update from the meeting that was had with the police? Gunther?
Just to say that the date for the next meeting has been set, I believe, for the 23rd.
I'll just go and have a look.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Mann.
Yeah, I had a bit of feedback from this formulation. I was a bit concerned that only councillors from St Benedict's ward would be invited to this meeting. I know it's the High Street, but the High Street affects the whole of the town, and I think it'd be worthwhile if other councils would be included.
Okay. But just to come back, I don't think there was any conscious effort to just have councillors from that ward. Maybe it was just, I put myself forward because I was the district councillor for that ward, and obviously the High Street is in my ward. But I think, we're probably open to discussion to get the fine details, as far as I'm aware. And, I think the police said they didn't want it to become an unwieldy sort of committee, and we put forward sort of a couple of members of the chamber, a couple of members of maybe the travelling community, something like that. There was a sort of we picked a cross section of who we thought would be affected by that meeting and who would be good at inputting information. But I'm more than happy to.
Is that we're going to be on it with the police liaison committee. So that it wasn't done by ward, it was done by the fact that there was already an entity from this council which had a relationship with the police.
Thank you. Very useful.
Chair, I was just going to say, I think, as it was kind of an informal meeting, there wasn't really a chair at all. Inspector Reid kind of ran it, but I think we need to get something a little bit more sort of concrete before we come back to the council.
Okay, thank you. But it's just useful to know what might have happened in that context, because only a few of us know. Yes, Councillor.
I was at it along with about half of us, and I made a proposal afterwards that when it meets again, it constitutes itself as an advisory committee to the council, which would give it a kind of statutory footing. Because it's taking place here and being clerked by the town hall staff. But that's something to decide at the next meeting.
The next meeting of that committee. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for the update. Very useful. Yes, Councillor Smythe. You.
Just on this subject again, having been in discussion with Matthew Reid on 2 or 3 occasions, I think it personally that I'll be at that should be at that committee, that first committee meeting, as with Councillor Bandu suggests to have it in the form of an advisory committee would cut a lot of corners and make it wholesome.
Well, Councillor, it sounds as if there was a reason why certain councillors were chosen to be on this liaison group with the police. I'm imagining that not every councillor who was present at the initial meeting would be going forward towards the meeting. Is that correct? Yeah. So who will be chairing that meeting? Do we know?
I think initially Reid is going to.
Right.
But the idea, I mean, I just like to say, I think Lokabandu's idea of it being a advisory committee to this is very apposite, because otherwise it's nothing. It's just floating in the ether. And if it's being clerked and it's kind of semi-official, it's got to have some relationship. But equally, and I think that was something that came up at the meeting, we didn't want it just to be the town council under another name.
Quite hear you, yes. So I think if it's an advisory committee to the town council, councillors can attend and observe the meeting. I think that would be the best way forward for any councillors interested. But I think as that group was there to set up basically the outline structure of that committee, then I think we need to respect that, councillor. So I think probably be better to attend like councillors can to any meeting that they're not a member of, if you know what I mean.
Apologies were sent to the initial meeting.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your wish to be involved more, and my advice would be to attend as a councillor who's not a member of the committee, as we can do with any committee in that, and you know, who knows how it will unfold eventually. Thank you. So now we need to receive the budget monitoring report This is tabled with notes. Any observations, councillors? Councillors, I was conscious that we had a query on the previous budget monitoring report, I think, and I note in the minutes of our meeting it doesn't actually say what the query was, just that one was raised. And we were going to ask the responsible finance officer for some clarity around that query. Connor, did we receive anything around that?
We have, thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor Ronnie Dougal's query was the figure at the very, very bottom, the net income expenditure under the budget heading. Why was that much larger than the one under the actual heading? So on your budget monitoring report provided for this meeting, in the budget, the net income expenditure, so it's net expenditure because it's a minus, the budget that was set last year for this year forecasted to spend into reserves. That's why that number is a minus, because you're spending more than you're bringing in. So in the budget figure, it's predicting to overspend, or not overspend, but dip into reserves by just under £52,000. Now, the reason that the actual is lower than that is because there's a number of months of the financial year still to go, so we haven't settled absolutely everything. So it's not that we've made more income than we expected or have spent necessarily more than we expected, although this year has slightly overspent because there was some unbudgeted expenditure, the boiler, the lift and inflation. That's the reason that the figure for the actual is much smaller than in the budget, and why they are minuses at the bottom, because we're the budget forecasted to spend into reserves. So that was the query, and that was the answer I got back from the responsible finance officer.
Councillor Ronnie Dougal, are you happy with the reply?
Thank you very much for explaining. It really helps to understand the accounts. Thank you.
So, Connor, are we expecting to, over the next 3 months or so, are we expecting to spend a good part of that £48,000?
Yes, Your Worship. All the financial forecasts are showing that we're going to overspend on the budget because of those unexpected expenditures. So we're not forecasting to underspend, unfortunately.
Thank you. Any other comments on the budget monitoring report? Or can we note this, I will suffice?
No.
Thank you. So we now move on to the schedule of payments for February.
I don't appear to have the schedule. I don't appear to have the schedule at all.
I haven't got it in my thing.
Was it papers put out on the table which I didn't see?
Connor, we don't appear to have could you put it on the screen, please?
I'm just looking if I've got a digital copy. If not, I will run some copies of that ones off. It looks like that was missed.
Cottle's copy.
We didn't get it sent.
None of you have got copies. Okay. I was just the first to realise that the area is always ahead of the game.
Is that your north node? So councillors, on the screen shortly should be the document.
So would you be able to take it in chunks, Your Worship? Because I can't fit the whole thing on the screen at any one time. So these are payments between 2,148 and 2,177.
Thank you, Connor. So councillors, do ask any questions that you may have in relation to these expenses. Connor, I note a number of expenses throughout this relate to the work that was done at Abbey Park. I'm assuming that the funds for that came from the Section 106.
Which payments are those, sorry, Your Worship?
J. Allen 12167.
Yes, they will be, Your Worship. They'll be covered under the Section 106 funding.
Yes.
What was the application for the schedule monument consent? Matter of interest.
That was the application, Councillor Henderson, to replace the basketball, netball practice court in Abbey Park because it sits within the old grounds of the Abbey.
Right.
We had to put down for the footings of the new basketball and netball practice court. We had to get scheduled monument consent from Historic England to do that work and then have an archaeologist on site.
Councillor Cook.
Yeah, sorry, the O2, where is it? 0102, you know, the drawings for the...
We're not that far down the list just at the moment.
Right? We're on that one. Oh, right, sorry, I thought...
We'll come to that in a moment. So, yes, Councillor Swan.
I just wanted to ask about how many people were at the Christmas lunch? Because, like, Indra very kindly got some stuff for it that came to 200 and odd. And then there's something, Louis Butchers for meat, 653. Now, that's a lot of meat. I'm sure Steve could have done it cheaper.
Well, that, just to clarify, that is my shop, but that's the new owner of my...
Do you have to declare an interest, Councillor?
Declare an interest, or I would have declared an interest back in December. I mean, I can certainly clarify that with Louis to find out, or I'm sure the town clerk has an invoice explaining why that figure is what it is. But I mean, I can't comment off the top of my head.
So I looked to the Deputy Mayor to say how many people were at the Christmas lunch or fed.
Yes, we've fed about 250 people, including all the volunteers. And that was...
That's 800 and odd quid's worth of food.
May I just jump in, Your Worship, and just explain that although we essentially act as a bank for the Christmas lunch, it's not actually town council funds. They had an earmarked fund that sits in our bank account that has been raised in previous years and came from grant funding. So although we make the payments and we hold the money, it's not actually town council money, if that makes sense. It's an outside body that we hold the funds for and make the payments for. So that's not, although they have to appear in our schedule of payments, it's not strictly a town council payment, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Councillor Napper. You wish to?
I'm sorry, that was my question.
Well, as a card-carrying vegan, I share your horror, but we have to move on. I need to declare that I'm a composer and author member of the Performing Rights Society. I see we got paid.
Can we go to the move it up down?
Yep.
Lovely, thank you.
The next batch, Your Worship, is 2178 to 2219.
Councillor Cook.
Regarding the schedule?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Regarding St Dunstan's House, stage 1 and 2, planning September to December, 3,393. I thought that's coming back, isn't it, from the town deal fund?
We've already received the funding from the town deal for that. So there's an earmarked fund of £25,000, I think, and there's £15,000 of it left. So we've received that in what's called pre-funding.
Yeah.
So it's not coming back. We've already had it, and we're working our way through the money that's already come from the town deal.
Okay, I think I've got it. Yeah, because we already paid them what, 2,000, I believe.
I don't off the top of my head know every single invoice we've paid to the architects, but we've had the money up front from Mendip District Council for all costs that we've currently paid.
Okay.
Next door.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments on any of the other ones? So we now move on to the next section, the final section. 209 to 22.
I can only fit on the screen, Your Worship, 220, 21 and 22 because it goes on to a following page. So I don't know if anyone has any queries on those last three payments.
So
Roll down to the second. Oh, the second page is literally just for your signature and that of the deputy.
That's right.
Your Worship. So that is the full schedule of payments for this month. I apologise for it not being provided in advance. That was an oversight.
Connor, do you have, so councillors, are you happy for the Deputy Mayor and I to sign these off?
Aye.
Thank you. Connor, do you have an official version of it?
Don't, Your Worship.
We'll sign this copy
any
here.
printed version, they would all be the same. So if you could print the one you've got.
Okay, so we now move to item 8, which is to note the resolutions of delegated committees. And there are 4 pages of these. They're really for your, to be noted. But if you have any burning questions around a committee that you're not a member of, any of their resolutions, please do ask questions. Yes, Councillor Serena.
On page 4, it's making £100 in a zero carbon world and obtain a replacement EV charger. Has that happened?
I don't know if that's happened yet, Councillor Dougal. I will ask Melissa.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor.
Thank you. Town Hall Revenue Subcommittee very excitingly says cafe and bar services for events. Do we have a date for that, when that can start, or is that just as and when?
I believe the resolution from Councillor Manning was that it would start from, well, we would start offering that service for bookings being taken now. I believe the first booking we're looking to run a cafe is in April.
29th.
Is that
yes,
your
mayor's
I think
event?
We were doing one before
right.
as well, but yes. I can't remember the date for that off the top of my head, but it's a...
Yes, so Councillor Napper.
Thank you, Worship. I note in this planning approvals, that there are one or two trees which are being what's the word, taken down because of the cubic yard or cubic meter. I just hope that the council, when they're approving different planning applications for housing and whatever, that we take into consideration that some of the trees, it's like a dog is for life, not just Christmas. Some of the trees are going to be in a few years rather larger than what is proposed. And I just feel that sometimes that we put in trees which in 10 years hence that they are overgrown and we have to cut them back. And possibly if we chose a different type of tree, it would be a lot better for our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your observation. Yes, Councillor White.
I could give you details of that previous question.
Yes.
Is that the Town Hall fundraising committee? And so the first date was Saturday the 8th of April. There was a coffee morning. So we would start with coffee.
Thank you very much.
And then the 29th of April was the Stonesville Avalon.
The fundraiser for the Mayor's charity. Yeah.
And that would be to do the bar.
To do, and also a cafe in the day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So can we note these? I will suffice.
Aye.
So we now move on to receive updates from advisory committees and consider recommendations for decisions. We have no recommendations from the, sorry, Councillor, sorry.
Well, yes, no recommendations, but I just want to correct it in that we wanted to meet with representatives of both the National Trust and Glastonbury Abbey, because they are the key partners that we will work with.
Quite right. That should be amended thus. Thank you. The Arts, Culture and Events Advisory Committee, who's chairing that?
You are.
Oh, am I?
Yeah, you're the deputy.
A momentary lapse of reason there. 3 recommendations for consideration. To recommend to full council that it takes responsibility for the 2023 road closure for Beltane on the 1st of May and utilises Herbie's Field for parking on May Day bank holiday. So, councillors, this is a recommendation coming from the committee. We took responsibility for the road closure last year, and it was something that we put in, but we didn't pay for the cost of the actual road closure staffing. So that's done by the Carnival Club. It was done by the Carnival Club, and there's a cost incurred on that. The danger, that was funded by a member of the community. The danger with that is that we don't always know whether a member of the community is going to stump up the cost. But what we do know is that event has become more and more popular, and there were quite a few thousand people there, including Channel 4 filming last year, and I imagine that there will be even more people with the exposure that we've had this year. One way that we could perhaps alleviate some of the issues around the town at the time, which is to do with parking, is to use Herbie's Field as well for overflow parking. We didn't have it used at May last year, which contributed, I think, to some of the problems that people might have experienced that day. The reason why we didn't do that is because nobody from there's no real organizer of Beltane, so there was no organisation was coming forward to take on responsibility of that. So we had the extraordinary thing of having a potential overflow car park not being used. It strikes me that the only organisation that can take on responsibility for any of these things would probably be us as the town council. And if we don't do that, we risk placing some sort of jeopardy to the town, as we saw in 2019, when the whole of the high street was closed with people but it wasn't closed to vehicles that were trying to get through. And the police had to turn up and effectively position themselves to staff a police roadblock to allow the safety of the people, but it wasn't, as it were, a closed road. So, councillors, any thoughts on this recommendation? Yes, Councillor Smythe.
I'd like to propose that we take up this recommendation and carry it forward.
Thank you. Anybody wish to speak against that proposal? So could I have a show of hands of all those in favour?
I think that's a majority, Your Worship.
Thank you. Anyone against? And any abstentions? I have one abstention. Thank you. So the second recommendation is that the council apply for a road closure for the bank holiday coronation celebrations, the big lunch, Sunday the 7th of May. Again, I think we're the only organisation that can actually do this. There is potentially some funding that we can apply for to help us support the sorts of things that we're doing during the coronation period. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Worship. We're going to apply for funding of £3,100 from the National Lottery Community Fund.
But it is almost a once in a lifetime experience for most of us, I'm sure. And it's something that perhaps the council should be mindful of. Would anybody wish to speak to this? I would like to propose that we accept the recommendation for the coronation road closure. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Margaret. And anyone wish to speak against? All those in favour?
Majority again, Your Worship.
The monarch has brought us together.
Unanimous, I think it was.
Oh, was it? Sorry, I couldn't see Councillor Cook's hand.
Yep.
God save the King for bringing us together. Item 3, to recommend full council holds awards at the coronation celebration on Monday, the 8th of May in Glastonbury Abbey. So the Abbey has kindly said that they would open for free on that bank holiday Monday to recognise the work of local voluntary groups and individuals and invite His Majesty's Lord Lieutenant Mr. Mohammed Sadiq to present the awards. Does anyone wish to speak to this?
We'd like to propose that we go with this recommendation and that we have an award ceremony.
Thank you very much. Would anyone like to second the proposal? Councillor Oakden. Anyone wish to speak against the proposal? All those in favour?
Again, that's a majority.
I think it's unanimous.
Unanimous.
Sorry, I can't. It's very difficult to see Councillors Osborne and Cook. If you could raise your hands higher, I'd really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. There's nothing to be ashamed of voting. That's what we're voted for.
What's wrong with my arm after my COVID jab?
Use your other one. Got two arms.
Climate Emergency Advisory Committee have 2 recommendations. I'm pretty certain I don't chair this one.
Shall I speak to this one? Because
Yes,
you
please.
had to be at the police meeting, Indra.
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. So you've already heard from the public participation about the task and finish group for making Glastonbury a bus-friendly town. It was actually proposed by Laura Wolfers, who is chair of Street Parish Council, because she comes to our climate emergency group meetings and is very involved, and she felt that this was actually the best way that we could tackle this whole thing of how to get more people to Glastonbury on public transport, so that we don't have the problems that we do have with too many cars parking and all the other things that come with that. So she recommended we did the task and finish group, and it could be something that we could actually deal with quite creatively and quite quickly, with various ideas such as that suggested by Phil Shepherd. I remember the person who actually set up Homes on the Underground back in the early 70s. She was a very fine artist, and it took a little while for her recommendation to come to fruition, but it was then very successful. So I think that we could maybe have a creative group of people working. I do think that the posters in the bus stops to encourage people to use buses. I really think that we need to work on encouraging buses. And if there is a possibility that the railway companies are actually going to provide buses from the railway station to Glastonbury, that would be phenomenally useful and helpful. And we could definitely work in with that. Now, part of that task and finish group came out of the fact there's something called the Somerset Bus Partnership, which is meeting regularly, and it's composed of councillors from the towns and parishes in Somerset. And one town that doesn't have a representative is Glastonbury. Susanna attends, but she's not a councillor, whereas most of the other attendees are councillors for their various council parishes. And it would be really nice if we could have a rep from Glastonbury Town Council on the Somerset Bus Partnership, and that could work in with creating the task and finish group. The two could actually work together, because this task and finish group idea is very much part of what's happening with the Somerset Bus Partnership, because they were the ones who got the rail companies to come to the meeting, the Somerset Bus Partnership meeting, and the rail companies talked with the councillors at that meeting and the bus proposals to meet with the train. So let's say the bus to Castle Carey arrives 10 minutes before the train is due, waits until the train has arrived, and then the people who get off the train can get on the bus.
That'd be helpful.
It would be helpful, it would be really good. So getting that sort of thing organised, and it would be really helpful to have a representative from here to do that, and for us to set up a task.
Thank you. Yes,
I'm quite happy to be a representative on that. I use the buses regularly.
Thank you.
That would be wonderful.
So, all those in favour, raise their hand.
Unanimous, Lilith, Somerset Bus Partnership.
Thank you very much. Do you need to pass on any information about the meetings, or is it easy to find out details or anything like that?
I'm sorry?
Do you need to pass any information on about how to be part of those meetings, or is it easy to find?
I get the. Can you coordinate? I think because Susanna already attends them.
Okay, thank you.
Perhaps going to request that they don't always have on Tuesdays.
Thank you. So the other recommendation from that committee.
We haven't yet done task and finish groups.
Quite right. Is there anybody wishing to speak to this? Well, I would like to propose that Glastonbury Town Council does set up a task and finish group tasked with making Glastonbury a bus-friendly town, finding what that means. I think that we could also perhaps explore what Street are doing, seeing as their chair is also involved in this.
Seconded.
Would anybody wish to speak against this? Can I have a show of hands, all those in favour? And that looks like it's unanimous. If you'd like to be part of this task and finish group as a councillor, please raise your hand now.
So I've got councillors Roney, Dougal, Price, Henderson, Manning.
Thank you.
That's everyone I noted. Thank you.
Thank you. And as a task and finish group, do we mean that this is an official advisory committee for the council, so that it can have members of the public as well? Yeah. Okay. So I think it should be noted that this should be an advisory committee. Yes, Councillor Smythe.
May I cordially request that Councillor Osborne might wish to be on this group? Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, councillors. The committee recommends to full council that they should ring fence £300 of their funds for the Food and Farming People's Assembly in March. Yes, Serena.
So I will speak to this one again. So the People's Assembly is going ahead really well. And we've got another meeting happening tomorrow morning in the town hall to finalise all the arrangements. And Joe Joseph asked, we've got quite a bit of spare money in the climate emergency group budget, and he asked if we could take 300 out, and this would cover things like leaflets and posters, maybe go towards some soup, this sort of thing. And it will really help to facilitate the assembly.
And yes, Councillor.
I just want to add there's 120 people that have signed up to it so far.
So would anybody wish to speak to this or make a recommendation or make a proposal? I would like to propose that the council should ring fence £300 of their funds. Presumably the funds already assigned to the climate.
The funds are already assigned to us.
So to ring fence those funds within that budget for the Food and Farming People's Assembly in March. Councillor Price is seconded. Anyone wish to speak against that? All those in favour? Thank you, that's unanimous.
And following on from what Indra said, that there's now 120 people, we can have up to 150 booked in, so there are 30 places left. And if you want to book in, either go to the office and book in through the office. Sarah is managing the bookings. Or there's something called Eventbrite, if you can do internet, and you can book on Eventbrite and get your place in the assembly. I mean, it's almost full and we've got a month to go yet, so get in there. Can I give a couple of other bits of information from the meeting?
Yes, of course, and perhaps the date of the People's Assembly for all those listening.
It's the 19th of March.
Mother's Day.
19th of March, 10:30 for 11, going on till 3:30, all like that.
Tickets through Eventbrite?
It's free.
Tickets on Eventbrite, yeah. It's free, but you booking in is because we're limiting the numbers so that we can get good discussions going. Shall I add a couple of other bits?
Yes, please.
So the thermal imaging cameras work really well, and it even came here to the town hall, and Melissa used it to find places in the town hall where we're losing energy. So that's been really good. And somebody reported, I haven't yet had it confirmed, but that libraries in Somerset are going to have thermal imaging cameras to rent.
Yes, they are.
They are. So anybody who wants to use one to find where their house is losing energy in order to reduce their energy needs, in order to reduce their energy bills, go rent it from the library. And it might be nice if we could have that in public notice. I think it'd be really good to get that information out as wide as possible, because it's a really useful device for discovering where you're losing energy in your house. The Mendip District Council have agreed all of our bike racks.
Great, well done.
They're not yet up, but they are agreed in principle. So watch this space. We will finally have bicycle racks on the high street. And there was a request that we've requested it before, so this is just another request, that the GIC have e-bikes for hire. The summer is coming on, the tourists are going to be coming. We want them to be coming by rail and bus. We want to give them e-bikes to use so they can go up the tour, go to Avalon Marshes, and we raise money that way. The GIC has got e-bikes for hire that we raise money that way. I know it's been mentioned before, I'm mentioning it.
Thank you very much. I wonder whether the town deal rep would like to speak to that.
Yes, thank you, Worship. So this is a sort of unfolding story, and the Deputy Mayor and I have a meeting at Zigzag, is it, or Red Brick, on Thursday?
Glastonbury cycle maintenance.
Workshop. Okay. So one of the town deal meetings recently, we had a presentation by Kelly Knight, who's the finance person from Mendip.
Economic.
Yeah, talking about bike subscriptions and various sort of plans and big issue bikes in Bristol and vandalism and Horizon as a sort of a sort of wider, higher place. So anyway, we had some conversations. So we have Glastonbury Bicycles over at Beckery. He has some 200 machines there, renovated machines, new machines, top-end machines, and he can get, say, 20 e-bikes for us to use. Quite whether it fits in GIC or not, we don't know. I have spoken with the town clerk, because before COVID, apparently our admin office used to do it, so the two Sarahs. And there was high-vis jackets, helmets, bike locks, puncture kits, all this sort of stuff. And that wasn't for very many. And those bikes had come from Lintall's garage. Right. And that's now closed down. The old guy retired, so they no longer do them. And so Glastonbury Bicycles bought all of the stock and all the spares. So all of that is already sort of sitting over there. There's another conversation that we've yet to have with Tom and Charlie up in Red Brick. Mm-hmm. And so again, that's part of whatever's going to happen on Thursday that we don't yet know. So anyway, we're working on it. The ideal thing would be that there's machines here for the town hall. Some revenue goes there for bike maintenance and servicing and whatever sort of admin costs for setting up the hire. And then some other comes into the town hall, which for me, I think is very good. We have to explore and then we'll report back on whatever we find. Is that okay? Thank you.
Thank you. So, councillors, I think one way or another, this is something that both the town deal and councillors here and the GIC, I'm sure, will be happy to explore. But it does seem like something we should be pursuing. We certainly did attempt before the lockdown to do something similar out of the GIC. Yes, Mark.
At the time, we just had ordinary bicycles. They proved to be problematic at times, I have to say, but it was the first time we'd attempted anything for it, so there were a few glitches in it. They are difficult to administer. Depending on the closure, when we close, like if we close at 3, the bikes have to be back at 3. It can be done, there's no doubt it can be done. But the problem with electric bikes or eco bikes, isn't there some new law coming out because there's been so many problems? Is that true or not? Somewhere I've read something. Scooters, okay. That's okay then. So I knew something, there was a law that was being passed. So yes, I mean, it can be done. The problem we'd have to look at is where they're stored safely, because they are nickable, and that people actually sign for them. And the way we did it is we asked them to leave a deposit first, and I think the deposit was about £20, and then they could take the bike. That's how it worked, but it can be done.
Thank you. Right reply.
Thank you. And I understood that they did some sort of like scan an ID or a driving licence or passport or something.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, councillors, I think we move on to item 10, which is to consider if the town council supports a proposed artwork on the wall at the end of Benedict Street, adjacent to the bypass. We did have somebody who was going to speak at public participation about this.
There we go.
So Gabriel Avalon, would you like to speak to this to the councillors? Would that be okay? Do come up to the table, we'll be able to hear you.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. I was approached by Tonya Toto asking me who would I get in touch with if I wanted to paint a wall. Next thing I know, I'm stood here before you. Don't ask me how. Anyway, what it is, it's the wall at the end of Benedict Street. There is a design in place. There are some artists, including Tonya, in place who want to do this. And the highways have already been contacted and said no. They've not said yes as such, but they haven't said no. So an official letter requesting that we are able to do it, I believe it would be the side facing up Benedict Street, not onto the highway. We would seek council support in that letter. I'd remind councillors that the current mural trail is a massive asset to this town. It brings tourists to the town. We actually currently have more artwork per head of population on the walls than Bristol. And yeah, come on, I mean, that's something, isn't it? Which is why I'm quite happy to stand up here and talk to this issue, because I think any opportunity we can get to make this town look a little bit better, it's got to be a good thing. Yeah. So all we're asking is that we can send a letter, and I'm sure Connor can tell us more about this, with the support of the council, and that we go ahead and get this wall painted as soon as possible. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. So, Gabriel, we have a number of people who might wish to ask you a question. Councillor Napper, Councillor Manning, and then Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to say that the wall, I think that we're on about, looks pretty disgraceful. That comes onto the relief road, and whether anything can be done about that or not, I don't know. And I didn't realise that it was that you were talking about the wall that is by Woollands Close. Yeah, I thought it was the wall that looks pretty bloody disgusting onto the bypass.
Relief road. I mean, the thing is, I mean, the reason why it looks so bad at the moment is because it's been tagged, and when they've been painted properly, they don't get tagged. That's so bad.
Yeah.
Then perhaps you should consider the outside of the wall rather than the inside.
Absolutely. I think that was the original plan, but we were advised we might not get both. So
true.
I believe that the Highways Authority may feel that it's distracting to drivers if there was a design on the wall facing.
Slow down like a Stonehenge, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Really? We'll get a tunnel.
So, and I appreciate your passionate wording there, Councillor. Very useful. Councillor Manning.
Yes, so just a question of the wall. Is it the one at the end of Bendick Street with the little gap in it?
Yeah.
Isn't that a brick wall?
Yeah.
Isn't that, I don't think bricks work so well with murals.
We've been in Bristol lately. A lot of those walls are brick. You paint them.
What they do is they undercoat the wall with a paint before they then put the design on the top. I've witnessed it done on the side of a metal container, and it worked perfectly. Councillor Much, then Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, I live on Benedict Street, so I go through that wall every day with a dog, and it seems to be permanently destined to be daubed on by graffiti artists. And so I think the point you made was if you've got a proper mural, they don't touch it. So I don't know if I could vote on it, whether I've got a personal interest. I live there, perhaps I can't, but I would say yes, good idea.
Well, Councillor, I think that you're a town councillor for the ward, so I think that it's probably good that you live in the ward that you're a councillor in. Councillor Henderson.
Chair. I lived down the end of Benedict Street for many years, so I know that well. And I would just, as Gabriel mentioned, we have got the mural trail in the town, so I suggest maybe we go to Kim Von Coles, who kind of organised that, and find out what what permissions we need, because obviously is it a highways issue, is it a Mendip issue? I mean, obviously we know about murals that have been done without any permission at all. So do we go ahead and do it and then hope for the best, as some people do?
I believe so.
I mean, I think we need to get some information. I think in theory we would like to see that wall tidied up because it is being tagged. Both sides if possible. As John said, that might not be possible. I think just get some more information and then bring it back.
Can I ask Connor to confirm where we are with this? Because we have spoken about this. Those letters have come, or there's been some communication has happened, hasn't it?
I've had communications from the Highways Department. They were under the impression we wanted to have it painted, and I clarified that we at this stage don't necessarily want it painted, but it's up for consideration. I've not had a reply, but basically I see it that if you get permission from Highways, the wall sits on their land, so it belongs to them. If you get permission from Highways, then we would probably also have to seek advice from Mendip District Council, because I believe Benedict Street is a conservation area.
Better be quick.
It stretches down there. So first step would be get permission from the landowner, and then we'll see what the planning.
Councillor Osborne?
Most of the murals are sponsored by shops or something. So would this one be sponsored, or who would be paying for it?
I believe Tonya's dealing with that side of it. I just got roped in to come down here and talk to this tonight.
Thank you. Councillor White?
Yeah, I wonder if this would fit inside the neighbourhood plan project as well, because there is a section in there on art and mural trails.
Well, Glastonbury Town Council has been an active supporter of the mural trail, which has come out of that very consultation that took place when we were originally doing the neighbourhood plan. So these things all came together in a beautiful synchronicity and serendipity. Do we know what the design looks like, Gabriel?
I've seen a picture. What I know about art, you could write on a postage stamp, and there's still room left to lick it, but sadly. It contained a tour and some Glastonbury type stuff. That's all I know.
Thank you.
I mean, if you wanted, I could probably get the artist to come along to a subsequent meeting.
Is there a timescale on this?
Only that I don't know. I don't know.
Councillor Henderson?
Well, I think if we can get this situation vis-a-vis planning in place and we know exactly where we stand, then we can look at designs, I think, as we did with the one in our own town hall. We can discuss, because we don't want to go, we've got permission, go ahead and find it something completely utopic.
But what we're
to be fair, a lot of the murals in town are really, really good, and I don't think there's any of there that I dislike. So there we go. I mean,
yes, I was
to be run past us.
I was only asking as we were being asked to write a letter of support. I believe that's the, and you can imagine if we wrote a letter of support for a design we didn't see, and then we find out that it perhaps isn't one of those designs that we were quite happy with. I don't know. So just a cautionary thought.
But as I say, Tonya has painted other artworks on the trail already. She's got artworks out there.
So councillors, in principle, because I know that whether or not we write a letter of support, the planning aspect of it and the permission from the landowner aspect of it is outside of our hands. But is the idea of putting a mural at the end of Benedict Street on that wall, in principle, something we feel we might be able to support?
In principle, yes, I would propose that.
So I think we've got Councillor Henderson and Councillor Price and Councillor Cook. Henderson, Councillor Henderson.
I was just voting.
Oh, sorry. I see. I thought you were raising your hand to speak. Councillor Price, were you doing the same?
I was doing the same thing.
Yeah. Councillor Cook.
Yeah, thanks. No, I'd just like to, now that this has come up, at the design phase of these murals, I think that's quite important, really, because there are some that have got through the net without any consideration. And I'm referring to two in particular on Benedict Street courts, with the goalposts, where the goalposts were, and it's just got 4 naked ladies flying about it, which is very inappropriate there. And I did say to Kim at the time, when she was doing it, or I did suggest that, she asked the Bangladeshi community about playing cricket there. They said, well, I've got permission. So she didn't say where from. But the thing is, the Bangladeshi cricket community, as soon as they came down and saw what was being painted on, never been back. So I think that's something to be beware of. There's not everybody is au fait with, not everybody, but that we've got to look at the minorities.
Quite right.
Yeah. So just bringing it up, that we should really sort of look at designs before we give the total absolute go-ahead.
So I believe that the permission was given by the person that was in charge of the courts at the time, which I think is Tor Leisure. So, and I presume that the design was run past them.
It was Mendip.
Well, they own the land as well, so.
I know they own it, yeah, but she couldn't say who. So, where's the paperwork?
So, councillors, I think that we're looking for an in principle vote. Did we have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Murch? Or anyone wish to speak against voting to write a letter, in principle, to write a letter of support? Anyone wish to speak against the proposal? Have a show of hands for all those in favour. Thank you very much. So we will write a letter of support. I think it would be very useful for the councillors to perhaps see the design, and also for us to understand the timescales involved and who indeed you would like they would like the letter written to.
Thank you very much. And I would just like to say, I wish it was that easy when I was a councillor.
Thank you.
You were the one that made it difficult.
Councillor Napper, you know that's not true. You above everyone else should understand that. So we move now on to review the draft 23-24 Precept leaflets. This should be tabled for councillors to see. I have a spare one here in case anyone doesn't have a copy. Connor, would you wish to speak to this?
Thank you, Worship. It requires a bit of zhuzhing up. We had some internet problems today, so I wasn't able to put many pictures into it. However, it's a pretty simple leaflet that essentially explains what the precept is, why we set it, what our budget looks like, puts it into pounds and pence, explains why the town council's made the decision to increase the precept for next financial year. It gives more information. It will be supplemented by pages on our website. So this is essentially a snapshot for households, and they can either get more information from the information centre or our website. And then it gives on the back page information about the new Somerset Council's council tax reduction scheme. And I'm hoping I'll be able to give a bit more information when people go to the information centre or our website about applying to it. But there isn't anything currently on the new Somerset Council website. What I lifted here is from the Somerset County Council website, which for April the 1st will change.
Thank you. Councillors, anyone wish to speak to this? Councillor Smythe.
Yeah, thank you, Colin, for your work on this. I have two suggestions. One is where it mentions that the town council's levied an increase of £66.72 per Bandy household. Could that be clarified to say per annum?
Yep.
The other omission, which councillors may or may not agree with me, would be to compare, as we've all seen, this precept with other towns of similar size within Mendip, just to make it clear that we still remain the second lowest precept of similar sized towns within Mendip.
Yes, I did. There is a short paragraph just above where it says more information is available via our website. The reason it was a paragraph rather than a table is because I struggled with the space, but I can certainly give that a go. I can liaise with the other large parishes what their precept actually turned out to be, because our forecasts were based on a no increase of tax base, so everyone's will have slightly shifted, but I can certainly do that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Councillor Dougal.
So yes, so in point 2 on the second page, it says the town council must finish Is this a legal requirement? Is it a law? Is it that the must implies, and it requires to emphasise that if it is a legal requirement?
It's not a legal requirement, Councillor Dougal. It is good practice to have a reserve between 33% and 50% of your...
Maybe we should say something about it being good practice. I think we should emphasise the fact that our reserves are very, very low.
Yes.
Owing to unprecedented expenses such as boiler. And also the pandemic was quite a hit, and that's not being mentioned. It was quite difficult getting through the pandemic one way or another. So maybe that would be interesting. And you say that we've delivered community events and infrastructure. You haven't mentioned the refurbishment of the tennis courts. And whenever I go down Benedict Street, there's always playing on those tennis courts. I think they're really quite popular. So I think quite good to mention that we
Probably mostly,
Wasn't our money, was it?
mostly Mel looking at the mural. Mostly Mel looking at the mural.
Yes, that money was Section 106 money, so we do need to bear that in mind. Yes, Councillor Manning.
I just wonder whether there should be something a bit more on the front cover, because it looks a bit boring.
It says pictures to be added.
Sort of should say, you know, your council tax for next year or something.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it just looks like a lot of text, and people might not want to.
I'm disappointed it won't be going out with pictures to be added on the front. I thought it was rather. Sorry, Councillor Smythe.
Good suggestion from Councillor Manning there. Perhaps your council tax explained or something along those lines.
I think we should say your council precept explained.
Yeah, your council precept explained.
I think that it would be merit in having a table, like we've got the table here, this comparison table, so we can see what everyone's paying. I don't think it needs to show what people have been paying in the past, but what they'll be paying this year. So that
in the other large parishes,
yes,
or across the different house bands.
In the other large parishes, what a band D would be.
Yep.
Welcome, Councillor.
Might I just suggest that this is a lot for people to read.
Yeah.
And maybe, and this is only an idea, the kind of that little first paragraph where you list all the things that we do, maybe they should be your front cover, kind of bright and, you know, bullet points. Because otherwise that, which is the positive element of this whole message, because really isn't it great we do all this stuff? Sadly, it costs a load of money. It would be good to highlight the stuff on the front so you've got something positive rather than a photo. Then you use that space for bullet points for that first paragraph, and then, you know, people may or may not choose to read it.
I think that's a very good point.
That's just mine.
Thank you, Councillor.
That's what you get from a teacher, you see.
Well, all the suggestions are gratefully received. I think that's a very good point. I think also that it is a lot of words, which is very difficult. If I receive this through,
they're all important facts.
yes, I think I'd probably be putting it straight into the recycling if I received it at home. Obviously, I would not as mayor put it straight into the recycling. I'd read it before putting it straight into the recycling. But perhaps also, could we have something along the lines of after it was condemned, following the word boiler, because it does sound like we might have just randomly replaced the boiler for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
I think on the point about it being a lot of words, I completely sympathise with that. I really did agonise over what to put in and what to leave out, because I wanted to explain what we do and why it costs so much money and why we had to make the difficult decision to make a large percentage increase, although when you break it down, it's an additional £1.28 per week on a Band D property. And then also I wanted to give as much information as I could about the new council tax reduction scheme, because it is possible for residents in Mendip to, currently they're only eligible for an 80% discount, but it could be up to 100% discount. So I wasn't sure what else I could really leave out without maintaining the reason for having this put through everyone's letterbox, but I'm more than willing, maybe outside of the meeting, if there are councillors who are particularly interested, I can have a separate meeting with them to really go through it paragraph by paragraph, but I've so far noted each amendment that's been suggested.
Connor, can I ask, it says still to have the second lowest precept. Are we currently the second lowest precept?
Off the top of my head, Your Worship, I don't know. I think we probably are with the wording there still.
So I think that if you had the comparative, like Shepton table, that all you'd need is Glastonbury is still the second lowest precept, and then you have the table underneath. That would cut out those words, wouldn't it?
It would.
And the paragraph above it, as County Council suggested, would be good on the front. So we're getting rid of some text there, aren't we?
You could even start with your heading possible to receive, it's now possible to receive 100% claim back.
Yep.
So the really important stuff is right on the front. So if people do then recycle it or can't be bothered or haven't capacity to read the detail, it doesn't matter. Hopefully they've got the most important part of the message.
Yep.
And the people who are interested will then go on.
Thank you, Councillor. I hope that the Clerks Department will be able to run every leaflet we produce to you, perhaps for proofreading and suggestion, as your suggestions have been brilliant. Thank you very much. Yeah, so sorry, Councillor Ronnie Dougal, then White.
As a writer, I'm fairly good at producing work others. I'm willing to try to it if people would be happy to.
I think if Connor's happy, it would probably
Absolutely.
be. Yeah. Thank you. Councillor White.
I was just wondering about point 3. The Town Council has decided to undertake several projects to increase its income and reduce its expenditure. Should we put an example of something in there?
Yep.
Or is that just going to open a can of worms?
I think it's better to just leave that.
Yeah, because one's a pub and one's a car.
So, councillors, any other points before we move on? Yes.
Just briefly, I think the back page could be reduced significantly because the reader could be led to a website, perhaps.
I think that we need to have this information on there because not everybody uses the internet. I think we have to be mindful of that. We're going to put this through everybody's doorway so everybody has an equal opportunity to see what, certainly on the tax reduction scheme, what benefit they could have. Councillor?
Yeah, no, I would agree. If at the front or wherever, quite close by, it does say there's 100% reduction and maybe a little bit about, and then say see back, and then there's a lot more information on the back, everything that they need to know about that. But yeah, a taster on the front.
So, councillors, can we note this? I think we're not being asked to resolve anything, are we, Connor?
You could resolve to, subject to the amendments discussed this evening and me working with Councillor Ronnie Dougal, who volunteered, to then go ahead once we're happy to go and have it printed and submit it to Royal Mail, because I want to try and get it into letterboxes as soon as possible, because although residents start paying their council tax in April, I believe they receive their bills in March.
Thank you.
Time's ticking. So if council are minded to propose that, subject to the amendments and me working with Councillor Ronnie Dougal, we go ahead and have that printed and delivered.
I propose what he said. Seconded by Councillor. So, Councillor Henderson. Anyone wish to speak against this?
I just had one more point to make, but
yes.
I just wanted to, and I think it is, but just to make sure that we're using plain English when we're.
Yes, I'll hopefully Councillor Ronnie Dougal will help, but I've tried to make sure that, you know, where I've gone, say band D, I put in brackets average, because that wouldn't mean a lot to a lot of people.
Thank you. All those in favour? Unanimous, I believe. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. So we now move to consider whether to create a town improvements committee, establish its membership and set a date for the first meeting, and whether to amend the terms of reference of the existing property and asset committee to include wider town improvements. So that sounds like two things. Anybody wish to speak to this? Councillor Smythe.
Yeah, thank you. Just as Chair of Property and Assets, I think this would probably muddy the waters somewhat if we change the name of Property and Assets. I was hoping that we could have it perhaps on the same evening, but as a different meeting thereafter. That would be my opinion.
Councillor, I'm not sure we're saying that it's replacing Property and Assets, are we?
So a town improvements committee was an idea that's been brought to the office in regard to currently the town council doesn't really have any method of considering wider town improvements. We've got property and assets that considers what we already own, and full council often has such a busy agenda, it's not necessarily something where you'd want to be debating the intricacies of project. So there's the option either to establish a committee to specifically look at town improvements, or I felt there was the option so that we don't end up with so many committees, because there are only so many evenings in a week and in a year, whether property and assets, which sometimes it could have agendas focused on what the town council already own, and then the next month it could have an agenda focused on something wider in the town. It was just a suggestion, rather than end up with so many committees to look at so many different things, whether you might want to consider a property, assets and town improvements committee, or whether you want a separate town improvements committee. I'm not precious either way. I just wanted to give the council options to consider, because quite often we do find that we struggle to put in all our meetings in evenings, and everyone's calendars are getting very, very busy because we're being much more proactive, which is a good thing.
So, right to reply.
Thank you, Connor. Both of you misunderstood my reasoning. My reasoning was to retain
Excuse me.
assets with a separate agenda item, town improvements, where necessary. Historically, we've had the Property and Assets Committee. It's met for many years. It's very clear what the remit of it is, and to change its name now, I think would probably be misleading to future members of that committee, and probably unnecessary.
Thank you. Councillor Commando. Property and assets is a committee of the council, yes. I think that's what we've got to consider, whether or not we create a new committee. I think it could very well be an advisory committee. That's something for you to debate with Councillor Henderson.
Yeah. Well, at our meeting last night, Councillor Smythe did mention that we have got a lot of committees and it's difficult fitting them in. I agreed completely with that. So using that logic, I would suggest that we do use it as part of the Property and Assets Committee, whether it's in the title or whether it's as an extra agenda item. I don't think that matters. We can sort out the fine detail, and presumably if we wanted to, it would be a public meeting, so anybody from outside the council who want to bring things to that committee could presumably come and speak.
Yes.
So we could incorporate the wider public in that way.
Thank you. Councillor Price.
Yeah, I agree with what Councillor Henderson's just said. That's in essence what I was going to say. We've got an awful lot of committees and it's really hard work fitting them in, and I think it could sit quite nicely within the property and assets, although I do take what Councillor Smythe is saying to not lose the main focus of that and perhaps have it as an added agenda item.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Thank you. So, yeah, listening to both sides of that, I agree that the Property and Assets Committee should keep its original name for the reasons that Councillor Smythe has said. And then, a bit like we do with the emergency plan, that could fit every so often into one of the agenda things. So if there are things that would be relevant for improving the town, then there could be a meeting or a dedicated meeting on that.
Thank you. Councillor Smythe.
I'd like to therefore propose that we keep the title the same, Property and Assets Committee, and have it as a separate agenda item where appropriate, and proceed accordingly.
So there's a proposal. Is there a seconder?
Sorry, can I just ask, is that then to accept the revised terms of reference minus changing the title? You guys pay me to be boring. Essentially, considering wider town improvements with the current terms of reference for the Property and Assets Committee, it doesn't work.
So there's a number. I think that Councillor, we've got a proposal and a seconder. I think we just need to talk through what the clerk has raised with us so that we don't so that we can have a agreement within the proposal. But I think we need to just look through the amendments to the property and assets terms of reference, which are in green on it. I wonder, Connor, whether the first paragraph, oh, he's off.
I don't know.
Connor, we should have jumped in straight away and say, you are never boring. But my first thought on functions, item 2, where it says including land, and we could have something like, I don't know, metal planters or something like that. Councillor Smythe.
As with the suggested amendments, I'm in favour of all of them, including the word installation, including the second paragraph there, including the addition to the third paragraph, and also including the addition under membership to include aldermen and older women. So all those amendments I'm very happy with.
Thank you. I need to raise a point of order, which is when the reinstatement of older men and older women was agreed by this council, I was the councillor who put forward it as a potential thing that we could do. And within the agreement of this council, it was that older men and older women have exactly the same rights to attend and speak at meetings as councillors. The only difference being is they can't vote at meetings. So older men and older women have the right to speak at meetings, of any of our meetings. They should receive an invitation to attend those meetings, any of our meetings. I'm sure they do, but so that something at the bottom of the page there would probably need to be amended. Councillors who are non-members may attend meetings but have no right to speak during the meeting as attended by, and then aldermen may attend meetings but have no right to vote. Something along those lines. There'd be two separate.
So they do have a right to speak.
Aldermen.
Yeah.
Aldermen and older women have the right to attend any of our meetings and to sit in the meeting as councillors and speak to any item on the agenda. They can put forward proposals or make recommendations, but they cannot vote.
So that needs to be changed. Okay.
Connor, does that make sense?
I've noted that.
Thank you. Andrew. I think that would probably be useful to put in, considering the conversation.
Yeah.
Connor, would you be happy? We've got the amendments you have in green. Could you just read through any other amendments that we may have just made?
Well, on the document you've got in front of you, I did change it to Property Assets and Town Improvements Committee. You've told me you don't want that, so I'll scrub that off. I've made a note to separate out the sentences so I'll replace it with that the councillors can attend but don't have a right to speak or vote. Older men and older women have a right to attend and do not have a right to vote.
Thank you.
I have made a note about adding in about public participation, but that is by virtue of the Local Government Act 1972 as a delegated committee that you have to have that. So, but I can add it into the terms of reference as well. So I've made a note, and all of the terms of reference for all of our committees and advisory committees are coming to you for the May meeting. So prepare yourselves. I'll make sure that any amendments that have happened to any individual ones, as we've edited them as we've gone through the year, will be made where they apply to all the other ones as well.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Yes, that point about public meetings doesn't normally appear in the terms of reference, but it appears on the notice of public meeting. Yeah. So that's all in there.
Thank you. So, Councillor Smythe, you made a proposal earlier on. Would you be happy to take into account the amendments we've made since you made your proposal?
Very happy to do so.
Thank you. Who was the seconder? Councillor Manning. So anyone wish to speak against the proposal that we accept these terms of reference as amended during this meeting? All those in favour? Or, I think that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, well, thank you very much, councillors. So we now need to receive county council reports. County councillor, so good to see you here.
So, first of all, I think people will be pleased to hear the thing that the public, from the emails I've been receiving, have been most concerned about recently has been the changes to planning meetings, where it was suggested that once we became unitary, and I think this has been the case at Mendip in any case, but not at all the others, that the public were only going to be allowed to speak for a total of 3 minutes. So effectively only one person would be able to speak.
Right.
And today that decision was changed and they're saying it's 15 minutes, so 5 people would get the option to speak on both sides, 5 for 5 days. So that happened today. What else have we got? So basically we're still having a massive projected overspend, but I think kind of everyone unfortunately was expecting that. So it's currently standing at 21 million. Sounds like a big number, but you know, I'm sure that's the same for all councils across the country. So shocking as it sounds, unfortunately, it's just the world we're living in right now. The LGR's, the local government reorganisation, is still on target to happen on the 1st of April, despite the fact that there have been quite a few delays in the summer with making appointments. They're still hoping that everything will be achieved in time. So there's something called greener roads. So it's about greener road maintenance trials. So there's funding to support projects focused on a greener approach to highways. So I thought people in Glastonbury were particularly interested in this, and they've set aside £5 million initiative, and they're joining forces with Cornwall, Hampshire and Devon to deliver innovative ideas on decarbonising how the UK builds and maintains its highways network. And this is being done in conjunction with various academic teams, including Exeter University. So other than that, I think the only other thing really that people might be interested in is something called My Time to Care, and it's about encouraging, it's a campaign aiming to empower carers and show that working in social care in Somerset is a respected, meaningful, fun career choice. So there's a social media campaign just trying to improve take-up. So hopefully that will be positive. And the other thing that we might be able to encourage people that we know to get involved with is a business mentorship scheme. So we're looking for executive, senior management level business leaders, successful entrepreneurs, business consultants who understand the challenges associated with running and growing businesses and the value of impartial advice to register and to train as business mentors. So that might be really useful for us as a town, when you consider all the things that we're hoping to achieve with the town deal. If we could try and, any of us who know people or anyone who's watching or listening that knows somebody that might come forward and act as one of these business mentors, I think that's a really interesting scheme that the council are trying to encourage people to get involved with. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the county council? Councillor White?
It was a comment rather. So Government of Wales have set up, and it's been going for some time, a road building and restoration review thing. That's just sort of come out today, and they've only approved 15 of 45 or 50, and they've just, Wales.
Yeah, they've scrapped it.
And they've just said you cannot, so all of the climate change bickering going over the decades, is it real or not? They said you cannot decarbonise by doing exactly the same stuff that caused it. So they have now just said, like, all of this stuff is going. So hopefully that will sort of filter through.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson.
Yeah. Hi, Sue. Thanks for your report. A couple of things with regard to planning. There was sort of some comments about when the unitary was first sort of talked about, that some local input would still be retained by the ex-district councils, and at Mendip last Monday, one of the Mendip councillors asked a question about what was that going to look like. So I just wondered if we could, when you hear anything about, because obviously we're all afraid of Taunton, deciding on planning applications in this, or any area, to be honest, without having local knowledge. So we'd like that to be sort of clarified. Also, I noticed there's been some gully clearing going on in town. Has anybody else seen that? I nearly took a photo. But anyway, was that just a random sort of happening, or was it as a result of us badgering Councillor Cottle? And if so, can it continue? Because that is, something we really need most of the gullies and most of the drains in town looking at. And I think that was pretty much it. There was one other question, but it's gone, so that'll do. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you know about the gully clearing at all?
Well, there's been ongoing for as long as I've been involved. There was a historic amount of complaints about that, and I think what's happened is
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm mindful that people listening probably couldn't hear what you said then, but if you were happy to, when answering questions, stand near the microphone, that would be probably quite good. There's one there. But thank you very much. Connor, do you know anything more about this gully clearance?
The only thing I know, Your Worship, the Resilience Committee wrote what they termed a strongly worded letter to the Director of Highways, a number of elected members and some other officers at the County Council. They wrote back and informed me that it was Glastonbury's time to shine. Because we are considered an urban area, our gullies are cleared every 4 years, and they had just started the gully clearing process for Glastonbury when that letter was sent to them. And they assured me that the teams, they were behind schedule at that point because of the cold weather. End of last year, but that they were in the process of working around the drains and gullies in Glastonbury with those large trucks.
Thank you. It'd be very useful for us to know which of the 4 years they choose over the decades to monitor. But anyway, very good. Thank you. So we now move on to receive District Council reports. I have not attended a Mendip District Council meeting. I'm afraid I couldn't attend the emergency meeting because I was attending a meeting here. And as Mendip is disappearing fast, I felt it was better to put my time into a council that's going to survive into the next financial year and next council year. I have attended the Axenbrew Drainage Board meeting, and I was conscious that that might be my last meeting as a member of the Drainage Board, Internal Drainage Board. I was very pleased that the clerk of the Drainage Board at the end came up to me and said they might be writing to Somerset Council to see if I could remain on the Drainage Board, which is probably some indication of something good that I'm doing there. I don't know. The main piece of information from the Drainage Board, which you may be pleased to hear, is that the drainage boards across Somerset are uniting to form a joint environmental committee, which will be looking at the climate emergency and ecological impacts that are happening on the levels of moors, specifically with that in mind, which is something that they have not been taking into account previously, and that's come out of a new Act of Parliament from last year, which has prompted them to do so. But this conversation about the impacts of particularly flooding through climate change and environmental issues has been raised many times at their meetings. Modesty prevents me from saying which councillor usually does it. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. I've only attended 2-minute council meetings since the last town council meeting. One was a planning meeting. Nothing pertaining to Glastonbury, as I remember. And the other one was the extraordinary full council meeting, which was held last Monday, which was to do with the judicial review with regard to the local plan part 2, which was quite a what's the word, taxing meeting, to say the least. And I felt that although we were sort of hearing about the judicial review and the implications of that to especially northeast Mendip, it tended to become a political football that the two sides were batting back and forward, so we didn't really achieve much. But there you go. I think we've got one more full council meeting before Mendip is actually wound up, and maybe 2 more planning meetings.
Thank you, Councillor. Any questions for us as district councillors? Opportunity fading fast. Councillor Smythe.
Just like to point out to everybody here that Councillor Cottle submitted a report, as did Councillor Duke.
Thank you very much. These are tabled, I believe. I have Councillor McDougall, I don't have Councillor Cottle.
Sorry, so Councillor Cottle's report came in this afternoon. I circulated it via email. That's the one that comes from the Lib Dem group at the County Council. And Councillor McDougall provided a report that I believe Sarah Mark circulated also by email. I do have a few printed copies by the look of it. If anyone, I've got 3 copies if anyone particularly would like to read Councillor McDougall's update. Some printed
Councillors, are there any questions? Any questions related to Councillor McDougall or Councillor Cottle's reports? May we note these? I will suffice. Thank you. Receive verbal updates from representatives to outside bodies. Yes, Councillor.
Thank you. Just one thing, it's been circulated by email to the councillors on the webmail, and that was that the Abbey project has just received planning permission. So that was from them. I think they're going to start later in the year, sort of September time, and hope to complete by about September next year.
Great. Thank you very much. I am not the council representative for the Glastonbury People's Trust, but the mayor is normally an ex officio member of that trust. When I was mayor in 2016, they asked me at the end of my term to become a trustee, and I am still a trustee of that trust, and I will remain so, but I need to report back to you that I have at the last meeting become the chair of the Glastonbury People's Trust, so that's a great privilege. Any more outside bodies? Mayor's announcements. On the 29th of April, I am co-hosting a day in the town hall to raise money for the Glastonbury People's Trust, which is a charity that gives out small donations to people during hard times. And it's something that is becoming more and more called on as times are getting harder. It's an all-day event which will include the screening of a premiere by a Glastonbury filmmaker who has been praised at the Cannes Film Festival and also received awards from other film festivals. And this film is called The Modern Day Warriors, and that will be screened at 3 o'clock on that day. There will also be bardic sorts of things going on and various other artistic things during the day, which will also have teas and coffees, etc., hopefully provided by this town council. At 7 o'clock in the evening, there will be a concert which will also raise money. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
We just wondering who the tea person.
oh, who the tea person was going to be. There we are.
We have an idea. That's fair, was too long.
So if you can come along to support the event, or if you can buy a ticket and not come along, that would be great. All the money will go to the Mayor's charity.
That's April 29th.
April 29th. Yes, Councillor.
29th.
29th.
Thanks.
Councillor Knapp.
Thank you, Your Worship. I am the representative for the Carnival Committee. Regrettably, I missed this last meeting, but I know that there is a lot of problems and regret by the Carnival Committee that we can't have the Carnival Committee in the town hall for the presentation, and we have to go to Compton Dundon for it. And I just hope that we can, in future years, we can accommodate the carnival in the town hall rather than having to go to Compton Dundon. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other?
Well, I have a query for St Edmunds Hall, which is an outside body.
Yes.
I was just wondering whether there were any plans to hold an AGM and get the users involved as a committee, because I think it's about time that started to happen.
Thank you. I think that's a very good point, and I think that the 4 ward councillors should discuss this. Councillor Lokabandu.
I've been preparing the accounts for the 2022 financial year, and I just need to go back to Jackie to double check something with her. Then the accounts will be ready, you can do the ATM. I guess the user can separate it at any time.
Thank you. So does that answer your question, Councillor? Yeah. Did I see any?
I sort of thought the users were going to be part of the committee.
So
that was my impression from the.
So we've got two things here. We've got the trustees of the charity that runs the hall, and the trustees need to have business meetings relating to stuff such as the charity returns, etc. Those meetings are attended by the trustees, and then there will be a wider committee for the hall, which has a long established format. And I think at the moment, just because the returns for the charity were not up to date, I think it's quite prudent that we, as the councillors who are involved as trustees, make sure that all of that is sorted and is that's underway at this moment before we get into the committee meetings fully. We've got just a responsibility to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed before we expand. Councillor Lokabandu.
It would encourage me to get on. If we set a date for the meeting, it would encourage me to get on with it. So we could set.
That's a good idea.
So I think that councillors, if we meet after this meeting, because it is separate to the council, that would be very useful. Any other reports from outside bodies? Councillors, we move on to communications and announcements. Do we have any communications and announcements?
I don't have any, Your Worship.
No. Okay, we now move on to correspondence.
Again, I have none, Your Worship.
I have received correspondence from concerned members of the public about the lambs in the field at Wiriel Hill.
Yes.
And I've received quite disturbing photographs of what appear to be dead lambs and lambs that are caught in the brambles, videos of these lambs in the brambles unable to move. I have forwarded this on to Environmental Health at Mendip District Council, and I have asked the members of the public who have reported this to do what they should do, which is to report these incidents to the police and to the RSPCA, which I hope that they've done. But it's not the first time actually over the years that I've received this sort of communication.
Oh, exactly.
And I think it's important to note it here. Any other correspondence? we move on to news releases. Is there anything that we would like to shout about? I note with glee that after a long period of time, the good news story about finding the trophies in Bloom got into the paper it only took them months. I don't know how many months it took the paper to put them in, but that story went in. It was quite nice to see that in there. It was also in the Mendip Times. Yes.
I was just going to say, so there was a story about the formal opening of the practice basketball and netball court, and it was at that story that the photographer said, "Oh, we've just had you in a photo." I said, "What was that?" "That was the in Bloom one." I said, "Oh, the cup's from a century ago." And he went, "Oh, wow." So we are sort of getting some coverage. And I think Gabriel of Avalon has sort of released those two YouTube.
Yes, I've seen that.
Yeah, I haven't seen, but thank you.
Yes. So do we have any other good news stories that we wish to get out about this council? I wonder whether we might think about turning part of this document into a press release, which would explain what the council's doing, and maybe that corner could be sent out with perhaps some of these excellent graphics that you may have, so that we're priming the members of the community. Are we happy with that as a potential news release? Thank you. So actions from the meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the actions that I've captured are to type and resend the highways minutes based on the amendments discussed at the very beginning of this meeting, to liaise with the police about a lack of a beat team update and circulate that once I receive it. I am going to liaise with the Climate Emergency and Resilience Officer regarding the donation to Zero Carbon World. I will also liaise with that officer again regards the task and finish group for a bus-friendly town and promoting the rental of the thermal imaging camera, because they come under neatly come under the Resilience Committee and the Climate Emergency Advisory Committee. And I will amend the terms of reference for the Property and Assets Committee and make sure that there's an agenda item on their next committee meeting, which I believe is on the 22nd of February, to discuss what town improvements they might wish to consider considering.
Thank you very much. The date of the next meeting is on Tuesday, the 14th of March at 9:20. I declare the meeting closed.
Thank you very much.
The succession.
Colin, do we have a meeting now?